Rittenhouse testified in the homicide trial against him, something that was unexpected considering usually those who stand trial do not take the stand unless the defense believes that it will help their case. Now, here it's clear that the defense thought that Kyle Rittenhouse taking the stand will help his case. And before we get to the moment that you just saw in more context, there were many notable moments from the trial today that I wanted to share with all of you, including this moment in regard to the weapon that Kyle Rittenhouse had, the weapon that he used to shoot individuals, 2 of whom died, 1 of whom was wounded. Now, under cross-examination, Rittenhouse did acknowledge that it was illegal for him to carry an AR-15 rifle that was used in the shootings. So for me, the only thing that's an open and closed or open and shut case is the charge regarding his illegal weapon. He has already admitted on the stand that he was in possession of one. That charge, by the way, is a misdemeanor. So it's not nearly as serious as the other charges that he's facing. But nonetheless, I wanted to give you guys some context and details into that moment. So Thomas Binger, the prosecutor, questioned Rittenhouse at length about the AR-15 he used in the shootings, despite being too young to legally own one. Remember, Rittenhouse was only 17 at the time. Rittenhouse confirmed that his friend, Dominic Black, purchased the gun on his behalf because he was a minor. And then he gave another reason why he chose that particular gun instead of, let's say, a handgun. So let's watch that moment in court.
Is the only reason was because you felt you couldn't lawfully possess a pistol?
Correct.
You didn't pick out the AR-15 for any other reason?
I thought it looked cool, but no.
You didn't pick it out because you wanted to go hunting with it, did you?
No.
You didn't pick it out because you were gonna use it to protect your house, correct?
Correct.
You picked it out because it looked cool.
I thought it looked cool.
Well, he's being honest there. He thought it looked cool. And that just kind of goes to show you how incredibly successful NRA campaigning has been in this country for decades. I mean, these are not seen as weapons that are dangerous, weapons of death. They're seen as weapons that are cool. So listen, that was a relatively small moment in court. I think that his admission of possessing an illegal weapon is important, but there were other moments that are worth discussing. So there was a moment in the trial, actually multiple moments in the trial, where the judge and the prosecutor were really not getting along. The judge engaged in this shouting match. To give you some more details and context before we go to video of that moment, tensions boiled over in the courtroom when the judge, Schroeder, lashed out at Binger, the prosecutor, for appearing to reference a cell phone video that was ruled inadmissible during a pretrial hearing. The video purportedly showed Rittenhouse saying he wished he had a gun so he could shoot people he believed were shoplifting at a CVS 2 weeks before the events in Kenosha. So again, that video, that evidence that the prosecutors wanted to use was not allowed in court because the judge felt that it didn't have anything to do with the case. The prosecutor argues, well, it kind of gives you a sense of the frame of mind that Kyle Rittenhouse had, but the judge wasn't buying it. You'll hear more of that exchange in just a second. But again, Binger argued that the video could be used to impeach Mr. Rittenhouse and illustrate his state of mind when he killed 2 men on August 25th. Now, here is the moment that I'm referring to. Here's the video from the court.
Just hours ago, I said I had heard nothing in this trial to change any of my rulings. So why?
Testimony, Your Honor.
Pardon me?
That was before the defense testimony.
Don't get brazen with me. You knew very well. You know very well that an attorney can't go into these types of areas when the judge has already ruled without asking outside the presence of the jury to do so. So don't give me that. That's number one. Number two, this is propensity evidence. I said at the time that I made my ruling, and I'll repeat again now for you, I see no similarity between talking about wishing you had your AR gun, which you don't have, so that you could fire rounds at these thought to be shoplifters. And the incidents in these cases, which are not, there's nothing in your case that suggests the defendant was lying in wait to shoot at somebody.
Now, the judge is correct in stating that the prosecutor can't just willy-nilly bring up evidence that was ruled inadmissible in court, right? So the prosecutor, in my opinion, has made many mistakes and has kind of bungled his case. And this is a good example of that, right? If you want to make the case that the evidence should be used, you have to go through a process to make that happen. You can't just unilaterally decide that you're going to bring it up in the trial after the judge has already ruled that it's inadmissible. Now, with that said, the question of whether or not the judge made the right decision there, I think, is up for debate. Because I would argue that that video is relevant to the case, right? What was his intention in wanting to obtain that weapon illegally, right? What was he intending on doing with it? So the judge has decided, no, I'm not allowing that evidence in court. It is what it is. But there were other moments with the judge that were tense, to say the least. He yelled at the prosecutor quite a bit. In fact, here's another example of that.
I was astonished when you began your examination by commenting on the defendant's post-arrest silence. That's basic law. It's been basic law in this country for 40 years, 50 years. I have no idea why you would do something like that. And it gives, well, I'll leave it at that. So I don't know what you're up to.
May I respond?
Yes.
We filed an other acts motion on this exact issue because in my mind, and I argued this, it is identical to what was going on the night of August 25th, in the sense that the defendant was using this exact same weapon. He was using it in a manner to try and protect property.
No, he wasn't.
Your Honor, with all due respect,
I'm not going to rehash the motion. That's absolutely untrue.
I mean, the video, if the video contains what the prosecutor claims it contains, which is Rittenhouse saying that, he can't wait to shoot individuals that are shoplifting at CBS, then the judge saying that it's untrue makes no sense, right? So the judge has had so many moments in this case that bring into question his own biases, right? And honestly, the judge really doesn't need to do much if he's on the side of Rittenhouse already, because the prosecution has done an awful job in making its case. So I don't know, if I were the judge, I would maybe be a little more careful with how I respond to the prosecutor, with how I handle this trial, because we're all seeing the evidence. We're all seeing everything play out, right? The evidence, in my opinion, is so overwhelmingly in support of the self-defense argument that Kyle Rittenhouse is making that we really don't need the judge to chime in the way he's been chiming in lately. But nonetheless, he can't help himself. In fact, there were other notable moments. I want to go to B7. This is where the judge even swoops in to kind of like bail Kyle Rittenhouse out as he's being questioned by the prosecution.
I didn't think I was going to be attacked and ambushed.
But you just said you had it for protection. What were you expecting you would need protection from?
I thought we had covered much of this before.
I'm specifically focusing in on the time period where he is heading down to the 63rd Street car source. I have not asked him about this yet, Your Honor.
Well, go ahead, but you need to pick up the pace somewhat.
I mean, we already went over this. And then the prosecutor responds with, no, I'm trying to get to this issue, this part of the night. All right, well, speed it up then. Like, the judge has kind of been a disaster, okay? Again, let me just be clear. The video evidence provided is pretty damning, and not damning toward Kyle Rittenhouse. What I'm specifically referring to is there's enough there, in my opinion, that Kyle Rittenhouse can reasonably believe that his life was in danger and that he used his weapon in self-defense. That's the argument that I'm trying to make. The judge is needlessly chiming in a way that's making people question his own impartiality. And he doesn't need to do that. Like, I don't know what he's doing, to be honest. But there was one other moment, people are making a big deal about it because of what you can hear. But the judge's phone goes off, and the ringtone is what people are calling into question. The ringtone is "God Bless the USA," which was played at, I believe, nearly every Donald Trump rally. Now, there's a lot of speculation. He might just like that ringtone. It might not have anything to do with Donald Trump. Even if he is a Trump supporter, I don't think it's necessarily that big of a deal. But nonetheless, the judge's phone going off in the first place, pretty ridiculous and unprofessional. Here's that moment.
And if the court makes a finding that the actions that I had talked about were done in bad faith, then I think both elements.
Can we just agree that the judge is not great? Not great. All right, so we're done with the judge. Now the moment that you've all been waiting for, I'm sure. So Kyle Rittenhouse did take the stand, and at one moment he was explaining what he was experiencing from his perspective when Rosenbaum, the first person he shot, was chasing after him. This is Joseph Rosenbaum who was chasing after him. I want to give you some details, some context before we get to this video. So as defense lawyer Mark Richards was directing him to describe the moments immediately before he opened fire on Rosenbaum, Rittenhouse began sobbing uncontrollably, prompting Kenosha County Circuit Judge Bruce Schroeder to call for a recess. So here you go, here's that emotional moment.
I was cornered from in front of me with Mr. Zeminski, and there were three people right there.
Take a deep breath, Kyle.
That's what I run.
We're gonna just take time for our break anyway. You can just relax for a minute, sir. We're gonna take a break about 10 minutes.
So of course, he's being accused of really acting up in a way that speaks to the emotional, like pulls on the emotional, elements of the jury. And I get that, right? To me, his crying, I don't care if he's sobbing for real or if he's making it up. I don't care about any of that, right? The acting, not acting, it's really irrelevant. Will it have an impact on the jury? Maybe, right? But what matters is what we see on camera. And for me, again, homicide, the homicide charge that he's facing, the burden of proof is very high, right? So you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he fired his weapon with the intent, right? With this intent of murdering people. And he's arguing, no, my life was in danger. I was faced with an imminent threat, both with Rosenbaum and also with Uygur and Grosskreutz. Okay, those were that was when he was on his back, and you have his head being kicked in. You also have someone hitting him with the skateboard. Those videos, I think, show that he reasonably believed he was under threat, that he was facing an imminent risk or imminent threat, and as a result, fired his weapon. Now, whether or not you think he should have been there, that's not something that he's on trial for. So we have to separate those two, right? What is he facing criminally? And then what's public opinion in regard to him being there? You guys know how I feel about him being there. He shouldn't have been there. And conservatives will cry and cry about me saying it. But to be quite honest with you, if the tables were turned And we were talking about, I don't know, liberal activists showing up to a conservative protest and doing the exact same thing that Rittenhouse did. If a 17-year-old did the exact same thing that Rittenhouse did, I would make the same argument. What are you doing? You're underage, go home. I get that you supposedly want to protect the community, fine, but that is not your job. We are not supposed to allow vigilantes to enforce the law. That is not the society that we live in. And to be honest with you, look, there were moments where the camera pans to his mother is sobbing uncontrollably. Why would you allow your 17-year-old son to be there with that weapon? No, it's inexcusable. I'm sorry, right? So, but that's my opinion. He's not on trial for that. There's no law against Kyle Rittenhouse being in Kenosha, Wisconsin. But I'm allowed to have my opinion. And to be quite honest with you, if I had a child, if I had a 17-year-old, I'd tell him to sit his ass down. You're not going anywhere. It's dangerous. And I'd be concerned that my child would get hurt. Or if my child is armed, that he or she would fire that weapon and kill other individuals. Just think about it ahead of time. And what I find really fascinating about this, both in the case of Kyle Rittenhouse and other members of the militia groups that were there, they didn't trust the police to do their jobs. Kyle Rittenhouse loves cops. He does. I mean, there were social media posts where it shows he wants to be a cop, he respects cops, he loves cops. Great. Why didn't he trust cops to do their jobs in protecting the community from looters, protecting the community from people setting fires? It was not his job or the job of any other civilian to carry out justice or to enforce the law that day. And the nature of them being there, unfortunately, allowed that protest to devolve into a situation where people were shot and killed. So those are my thoughts. But in terms of him standing trial, in terms of the charges he's facing, the only charge that I really see him being convicted of, because he admitted it himself on the stand, was being in possession of a weapon that he could not legally be in possession of. All right, that took a lot longer than I expected. And everyone's mad at me for how I've covered this story. Conservatives are mad at me because I corrected myself when I was wrong earlier. Sorry, I'm happy I corrected myself. It's the right thing to do. And some people on the left think that I'm being too generous to Rittenhouse. The evidence is the evidence, guys. I can't change the facts of the story. So do with that what you will.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.